Well, hey there everybody, it's Snackbox coming to you from just a sunshiny and hot day here in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm so amped to be here talking to you about segment 26 of the Colorado Trail. That's right, we have just 3 left to go. This one is tremendous. It is just a really interesting section with a lot of things you need to be ready for. We got a lot to cover, not a lot of time. Let's get to it. So if you get like a bag of M&Ms and you only eat half of them, does that mean you ate just M's? Sorry. So segment 26 of the Colorado Trail goes from Bowlin Pass Road 11 miles over to the Hotel Draw Road. It's actually like 10.9 miles, but you get the idea. What am I doing here? It goes up in elevation 1,800 feet and down in elevation about 25 to 2,600 feet. This one is just a really nice segment. It's one where you're going to be able to do these 11 miles relatively quickly compared to some of the other more difficult segments. So what I want to mention as well is that I know a lot of you have mentioned that you really appreciate being able to see the trail. And also I haven't filmed this section of the trail because it was about 5 years ago that I actually hiked the last 230 miles of the Colorado Trail. So I don't actually have footage of this part of the trail. But if you are interested in seeing this part of the trail, just go check out Mad Hippie's Life, their YouTube channel. They make beautiful videos of each segment. Spend a little time checking out their channel. They have each of the segments and you can watch the segment 26, 27, 28. Be sure to like and subscribe to their channel as well because it's very clear when you watch it that they put in a lot of effort on those videos. So check those out. You can actually see the physical terrain. They're just tremendous. So check their channel out. But there's still some things that you really want to be aware of, particularly as you near the end of the segment, because you do have a little bit of a rise you need to be careful of, especially if you're crossing later in the afternoon. This should be no news to anybody. This is just one of those things where at this point you should always be thinking, how do I make sure I'm low enough in elevation by the afternoon to make sure I'm not on a ridgeline whenever a storm rolls in, and then start thinking through, in this segment particularly, water. Now here's why I say that. At the end of the segment, about 8.4 miles in, so just a couple of miles from the very end of the segment, you are going to come to the Straight Creek. The Straight Creek is really, really important for everybody who does a through hike of the Colorado Trail because this is the last reliable water on trail for 22 miles. Now, let's pick apart the language of that really quickly because I don't want you to be worried about it. It's something you're going to be able to manage. That's the whole idea here, is we're going to find ways to manage it. What you want to recognize there is that phrase on trail. So if you end up thinking, I can't hike 22 miles, how am I going to do it? Don't worry, there are some options, especially in segment 27, where you can take a couple of side trails to get some water if you can't make it 22 miles with the amount of water you would have to carry to make it that distance. So it's going to be fine. So let's start getting into it. Let's talk a little bit about how you can make your way through this segment. It's going to be fine. So the first tip that I have has everything to do with that water source there at Straight Creek. Now, in the past, I've been telling you to set up before certain ridge lines or maybe after ridge lines so that you can time your crossing for the afternoon so you can make it over these ridge lines whenever the storms will allow you to, if there's a storm in the area for that day. This one is a little bit similar in that you still want to plan around one specific landmark, but in this case, it's actually that water source. So what you want to think of as you are approaching the end of this segment is, do you want to camp there at Straight Creek? Do you want to stay for the afternoon and fill up on water? Do you want to wake up really early so you miss a lot of that sunshine and make your way through as many miles as you can later in the day? However you want to do it, you want to think through how that water source fits into your plan. This is pretty easy to figure out, especially because for many of you, it will have everything to do when you arrive at that water source. So a lot of times what people will choose to do is if they show up later in the afternoon, because you'll already be past that high point in the segment, they'll load up on a bunch of water, maybe they'll stay and drink a bunch of water, make sure they're as hydrated as possible, and then make their way into the next segment, maybe 5 to 10 miles, so that the next morning they can wake up and finish up that segment toward Taylor Lake, which is where you're going to find that water in segment 27. For those of you who are maybe slower hikers, like I was when I first started hiking the Colorado Trail, maybe your pack's really heavy, whatever it is, you might want to start planning to make a side trip in segment 27 to one of the water sources that's off trail, maybe a mile or two on some of those spur trails. That's a totally acceptable plan as well. The other thing you can do is stay there at Straight Creek. There are some campsites there. Load up on water, really spend the night hydrating on it, and then take off early in the morning. And again, early morning in this case is going to be really important because as you can see the sun beating down on me, I'm already sweating and I'm not doing anything. So imagine if I had a backpack on, that would be really tough and it would really sap me of my water and hydration quickly. So at this point, you really do want to make an early start the next morning if you camp there, particularly because you want to make as many miles as you can without the sun robbing you of your hydration. Speaking of that hydration, before you get to Straight Creek, there are a lot of great water sources. So not only should you be thinking at this point you can make that distance without carrying a lot of water, but every time you get to water, chug more water than you think you need. You want to make sure that your body is really absorbing as much water as possible, because if you you came through segment 25 to get here, which you had to. So as you came through segment 25, you certainly put in a good bit of exertion and you lost a good bit of that hydration you probably picked up as you were resting in Silverton or at the Mullis Pass campground. At this point, you want to really start spending the whole length of this 10 and 11 mile segment filling your body back up on that water to make sure that when you take off from Straight Creek into 27 that you are going to be as hydrated as possible. This is pretty obvious for most people, but it's just one of those things you want to be really thoughtful and conscious of here, that even if you're not thirsty, you want to keep water going in your system because you want to make sure that when you take off past Straight Creek, you are as hydrated as possible. And then lastly, this one is a little bit less obvious and it kind of takes a little bit of planning there at Silverton or even beforehand, but you want to set up a full day's menu, maybe 2 days of menu, where you don't need to cook using water at all. What does this mean exactly? This means that maybe you want to take some peanut butter and tortillas for dinner. Maybe you want to take some salami and cheese and pita bread for dinner. Maybe for breakfast, instead of taking oatmeal, what you want to do is take a couple of Cliff Bars or something where you don't have to rehydrate that. Also, for me, it would be coffee. So what a lot of people do at this point when you're in a segment where you don't have a lot of water, rather than trying to use water to make coffee, maybe you take some chocolate covered espresso bean. Maybe you take a couple of caffeine pills with you to make sure that you don't have a caffeine headache, and then you just tough it out without coffee for that segment, and then you're in good shape. There are a lot of different ways that you can navigate this, but the key here is you don't necessarily want to be using up a lot of water for your food, particularly if you're using a dish that you're prone to throw away some of that water. So for example, if you make ramen and then you drain the water and throw that away, at the very least, you may want to take that water and just drink it. Make sure that every bit of water you carry through the last bits of this segment go into your body in some way, shape, or form. And that's a really important thing for making sure that you are happy and healthy making your way through this segment. If you've made it this far, you're gonna be fine. You probably will figure this out. But I think this is a really important one because it's not necessarily clear on gut hooks if it will warn you that this is the last water for a long, long time. So just be aware of it as you're heading into that segment. This is a really beautiful segment as well, so I hope you're getting very excited about this. These are the segments people wait the entire trail to see, so this one is really well worth your excitement, and I think you should be amped about it. And even the next segment with the lack of water is still really incredible. That's what the cicadas are saying here. Do you hear the cicadas? They're just amped for you. They're like, hey, they're hiking the Colorado Trail. We're stuck here in the trees and we're gonna go underground for 17 years. Let's make sure they hear us. So that about covers it, everybody. I hope that you find this video helpful. I hope that cicada is not making you crazy like it's making me a little bit crazy. And if you did like this video, I hope you'll click like and subscribe so you can be here whenever I upload the video for segment 27 and 28. Spoiler alert, 27 is getting filmed here in just a moment or two, so the cicada might make another cameo. Who knows? We'll see. Anyway, click that like and subscribe button, and if you haven't already, send me a message on Instagram at Backcountry Champion. You don't even have to follow me, just send me a message and say, hey, Snackbox, hit me up with one of those outside comfort zone stickers and I will get one in the mail to you. I will send it off and make sure it's to you. You don't have to pay me anything. It's just my way of saying thank you for being a part of this community. And I think that about covers it, everybody. Hope you're getting excited. I have only 6 or 7 days until I start the Colorado Trail, maybe even less. I don't know where's this year going. I am amped about it. I hope you are as well. I hope I get to meet you somewhere between Denver and Durango. And until I see you again, holla back, youngin', holla back.